Right now, while you're watching this, there's a number sitting in your bank account that you haven't looked at in weeks. You already know why. Because you have a pretty good guess what it'll say, and you'd rather not confirm it. And look, I get it. That low grade hum of financial dread that follows you around like a song stuck on repeat. You're somewhere between fine and falling behind, and the honest answer changes depending on the day. You haven't checked in a while, and the avoidance has quietly become its own kind of strategy. But that avoidance isn't free. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to find out what it's been costing you. No judgment, no shame, just the numbers, the reasons behind them, and a way forward that works for the person you already are. There's this moment on an airplane, right before turbulence hits, where the pilot comes on and says brace for impact. They say it when the shaking has already started. That's where most people are with their money right now. The turbulence started months ago, maybe years ago. That tightness when you open an app to check your balance, the mental math at the grocery store where you're estimating, because you genuinely have no idea what the real number is. Money comes in, money goes out, and somehow there's never quite enough left to breathe. The weird part is that this feeling exists at almost every income level. People making $40,000 feel it. People making $120,000 feel it. The dollar amount changes, but the fog stays exactly the same, because the fog comes from how little you know about where the money goes. I noticed this first in my own spending about 4 years ago. I was earning more than I ever had, and somehow felt broker than when I was making half as much. You're probably decent with money, honestly. Most people are. You just never cornered your money and said, all right, walk me through last month. Never asked it to account for where it went last Tuesday, or last month, or last year. Without that conversation, you're navigating blind. So let's just look. That's all we're doing here. Just looking at it. I promise you, the looking is less scary than the avoiding. It always is. The problem is, you don't know where the money went, and what you can't see, you genuinely cannot fix. That's the starting line. Here's a reframe that really shifted things for me. Your bank statement isn't a judgment, it's a receipt. It's a list of what happened, that's all. Your bank statement works the same way. It records decisions, some good, some questionable, most of them completely automatic. They treat their bank statement like something from the IRS, a thing you set on the counter and deal with later. Later never comes. The stack grows, and the uncertainty compounds month after month. So here's the exercise, and it's painfully simple. Pull up last month's transactions. Just last month, 1 month. Sort them into rough buckets: housing, food, transportation, subscriptions, entertainment, random stuff you can't categorize. Don't judge any of it yet. Just count. Go ahead. I'll wait. What most people find, what I found when I did this the first time, is that the number attached to 2 or 3 categories is way higher than they expected. I mean significantly higher, sometimes double. And the categories that surprise you are almost always the same ones. They fall into predictable, repeatable, fixable patterns. The money didn't vanish. It went somewhere specific. Like you signed up for something and then forgot to ask whether it was still worth the price. Which brings us to the first category that's probably bleeding you dry right now. Let me walk you through a number that's going to bother you. The average American household carries between 6 and 8 active subscriptions. Streaming, music, cloud storage, a fitness app you downloaded in January, maybe a meditation app, possibly a language learning platform because you thought you'd pick up Portuguese. You didn't pick up Portuguese. At an average of $14 per month per service, 6 subscriptions run you $84 a month. That's $1,008 a year on things you may or may not be actively using. Subscriptions are designed to be forgotten. The sign-up is frictionless. 1 click, a free trial, auto-renewal. Cancellation? Buried in settings menus, behind confirmation screens, sometimes requiring you to call an actual phone number in 2024. That asymmetry is the business model. Sign up easily, cancel never. Streaming services are the most obvious example. You've got one for the show you finished 3 months ago. You've got another for the movie your friend recommended that you still haven't watched. A third came bundled with something else, and you forgot it existed until just now. In the last 30 days, how many of those services did you actually open more than twice? Be specific. You just forgot to check if it was still earning its seat at the table. There's a faster leak, though. It happens every time you decide you're too tired to cook. I need to confess something because I think it'll help. Last year, I ordered a burrito through a delivery app. The burrito was $14. By the time I checked out, the total was $28. $14 for the food, $4 for the delivery fee, $3 for the service fee, then a tip, because you should tip, and I did, another $4. The app asked if I wanted to add an extra dollar for the driver, and I felt guilty, so I did. $28 for a burrito I ate standing over my kitchen sink in 11 minutes. I'm telling you this because I am the problem, and I'm also extremely average. The reason the number gets that high is that each individual order feels small. $15 here, $22 there. It's Tuesday, you're tired, the app is right there. 2 taps and the decision is made. I did it last Thursday. Convenience is a real service, and sometimes it's worth paying for. Genuinely. The pricing structure is designed so you don't add it up, though. Fees are broken into pieces: delivery fee, service fee, small order fee, sometimes a surge fee. So no single line item looks outrageous. The monthly total is a different conversation entirely. Pull up your last 30 days of statements and add up every delivery charge. Every one, the food, the fees, the tips. Get a total. Don't round down. Don't skip the small ones. Just get the number. A home-cooked meal costs somewhere between $3 and $5 per serving. A restaurant meal costs between $15 and $25. Those numbers shift depending on where you live, but the ratio stays roughly the same. About 4 times to 5 times more for eating out. If you eat out 3 times a week, which is below average for most urban adults, that's somewhere around $60 to $75 a week. It's $240 to $300 a month. Cooking those same meals at home would cost maybe $50 to $70 a month. The difference lands around $200 a month, $2,400 a year. I want to be clear about something, because I think people hear numbers like that and assume I'm about to tell them to stop eating out. I'm absolutely, categorically not saying that. Eating out is social, it's enjoyable, it's sometimes the only sane option at the end of a brutal day. I eat out regularly. I'll eat out tomorrow probably. I just know what it costs when I do. Knowing the cost versus ignoring the cost are 2 very different conversations. While we're naming invisible expenses, cable TV. If you're still paying for a cable package, you're spending somewhere between $80 and $120 a month for a bundle of channels you mostly scroll past. Cutting cable was one of the easiest financial decisions I ever made. The $1,200 a year I got back was modest in the grand scheme. What changed was how I felt about my money, because I chose where it went instead of letting it drain on autopilot. So the leaks are on the table now. Subscriptions, delivery, restaurants, cable. You've probably done some rough math in your head, and the total isn't comfortable. Knowing the number is only half of it, though. The other half is understanding why you kept letting it happen, even when some part of you already suspected. The people who wrote them weren't lazy. They didn't lack discipline. The budgets were just wrong, built for an imaginary version of a life that nobody was actually living. You sit down on January 1st, full of fresh start energy, and you write a budget based on who you think you should be. The version of you who cooks every meal, cancels all subscriptions, and somehow spends $200 a month on groceries for a family of 3. And the budget you wrote for them collapses the first time real life shows up, which is usually around January 9th, when you're exhausted and the app is right there. I'm not entirely sure why we keep doing this, writing plans for a fictional version of ourselves, but I think it has something to do with how optimism works on the first day of a new year. A rigid budget is actually dangerous because it has 0 room for the thing that actually happens. Appreciate you sticking around. If you liked what you heard, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your take. And if you know someone who'd enjoy this, share it with them. The moment you deviate from it, even once, even slightly, your brain does something predictable. It says, well, I already blew it. Then the whole thing unravels because the system had no way to absorb a single imperfect week. The budget didn't fail because you're undisciplined. It failed because it described a life you weren't actually living. And fiction, however optimistic, rarely survives contact with a Tuesday night after a long day at work. The design problem is fixable, though. Before we fix it, there's something more fundamental happening, something that explains why most people never even get to the design stage. They avoid the whole thing entirely, and the reason caught me off guard. The issue is fear. Plain and simple. As long as you don't look at your bank account, there's a version of reality where it might be fine. The number might be okay. The spending might be reasonable. You might have more than you think. As long as you haven't looked, it could still be fine, and could be fine, even when you're pretty sure it's not. Feels better than knowing for sure. Except it isn't working, because the anxiety doesn't go away, it just changes shape. Instead of the sharp, specific anxiety of I have $340 until the 15th, you get the dull, pervasive anxiety of I have no idea and I'm afraid to find out. The anxiety isn't really about the money, it's about not knowing what the money is doing, and the cruel irony is that the act of looking, the thing you've been avoiding, is actually what makes the anxiety smaller. Sometimes the number is bad news. Bad news you can see, though, is infinitely more manageable than bad news you're imagining in the dark at 2 a.m. So now you know why you've been avoiding it. The way out isn't trying harder. It's setting something up that doesn't need you to try hard. A real system, one built for your actual Tuesday nights, is simpler than you've been told. A budget, at its core, is one equation. Income minus fixed expenses minus variable expenses equals what's left. That's it. Everything else is detail. Fixed expenses are the ones that stay constant month to month. Rent or mortgage, car payment, insurance, phone bill. They're predictable, they're usually automatic, and they're the easiest part to nail down because the numbers are already decided for you. Variable expenses shift. Groceries, gas, entertainment, eating out, clothing. These categories are where the leaks happen because the amount isn't predetermined. It's chosen, often unconsciously, one transaction at a time. Your categories don't need to be complicated. Housing, food, transportation, subscriptions, personal spending, savings. 6 categories. Add more later if you want, but 6 is enough to start. The goal is visibility, nothing fancier than that. Take one afternoon, one piece of paper, or a spreadsheet, whatever you actually like using. The tool genuinely does not matter. Write down your monthly income at the top. List your fixed expenses below it, subtract, and whatever's left is what you have to divide across the variable categories. That division is the budget. You can do this weekly instead of monthly if a whole month feels overwhelming. Some people find it easier to manage a week at a time. 52 small plans instead of 12 big ones. And either approach works. It took me about 40 minutes to set mine up the first time. The structure works. There's one category, though, that almost every budget leaves out. And it's the one that causes the whole thing to collapse the moment life does what life always does. Your car registration is not an emergency. It happens every single year on roughly the same date for roughly the same amount. These are irregular expenses, and they are budget killers. Car registration, annual insurance premiums, back-to-school supplies in August, the 3 birthdays that cluster in October, holiday gifts in December, vet visits, the dentist, 6-month car maintenance. Every single one of these is completely predictable. They just don't fall on a monthly cycle, and because they're not monthly, most budgets ignore them completely. Then they arrive and blow a hole in whatever plan you had. You put them on a credit card, the card becomes part of the background noise, and the cycle keeps going. The fix is something called a sinking fund, and it's embarrassingly simple. Take the annual cost of any irregular expense and divide it by 12. Car registration is $200 a year. That's $17 a month. Set it aside. Holiday gifts run you $600. That's $50 a month. Set it aside. When December arrives, the money is already there. No credit card, no panic. The car registration was written on a calendar the whole time. You just hadn't planned for it. Sinking funds remove one of the biggest budget killers. There's still the question of the money you're supposed to be saving, though, and why willpower alone has never been the answer for that. Here's a saving strategy that fails every single time. I'll save whatever's left at the end of the month. You already know why. There's never anything left. Money that sits in your checking account gets absorbed. It finds a use, always. By the end of the month, it's gone, and you're wondering where it went, which if you remember the receipt conversation, is the whole problem. Save first, spend what's left. And the way you do that without relying on discipline, because discipline is a depletable resource, is automation. Set up an automatic transfer. The day after your paycheck hits, a predetermined amount moves to a savings account. You don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't debate whether this is the month you can afford it. The decision was made once, and now it just executes. Even $25 a month. I know that sounds small. The point of starting at $25 isn't the math, it's the momentum. You're building the habit of paying yourself before you pay everything else. The amount can grow later. The habit is the hard part, and automation makes it effortless. Automation handles the saving, the budget handles the spending. None of it works, though, if the whole structure is built around a version of your life you're performing rather than actually living, and that's the last trap, the sneakiest one. A budget that's all obligations and no enjoyment has about a 3-week shelf life. I know that sounds obvious. You'd be amazed, though, how many people build a budget that allocates every dollar to obligations and savings, then wonder why they abandon it by week 3. They abandon it because they're human. Humans need to enjoy things. A budget that ignores this basic fact about being alive is a budget designed for failure. You need a fun money category. Call it whatever you want. Personal spending, discretionary, the reason I work. The label doesn't matter. What matters is that it has a number, and you spend it without guilt. That's the deal. The rest of the budget does its job. This category does its job. Nobody apologizes. There's a real difference between intentional spending and unconscious spending, and that difference makes all of this work. Unconscious spending is the delivery order you don't remember placing, the subscription you forgot existed, the third streaming service you haven't opened in 6 weeks. Intentional spending is the dinner with friends you planned for, the concert tickets you budgeted for, the coffee shop visit that's part of your Saturday morning and genuinely makes your week better. One of those feels good. The other feels like nothing, which is worse. Living below your means just means figuring out what you actually value and then funding that thing on purpose. The budget is there to make sure you're spending on the stuff that matters to you instead of bleeding money into things that don't register. When the budget fits your real life, it lasts. And a budget that reaches month 2 does something the January version never got to do. It starts working. A budget that includes fun money breaks the avoidance loop because you stop associating your finances with punishment and start associating them with choices you made on purpose. You're going to hate the first month, that's normal, and it's not a sign that it isn't working. I'm telling you now so it doesn't catch you off guard. The first month feels restrictive. You're aware of every purchase in a way you weren't before, and that awareness is uncomfortable. You'll reach for your phone to order delivery and then stop yourself, and the stopping will feel like deprivation, even though it's just information. You'll check your category balances and feel annoyed. You'll wonder if this is worth it. Month 1 is the worst month. It's also temporary. Month 2 is different. By month 2, you know your numbers. You know what your groceries actually cost. You know how much gas you burn through. The rhythm of your spending starts to feel familiar instead of foreign. You're reading now instead of guessing. By month 3, and this is the part I couldn't have believed until I lived it, you can't imagine going back. You know where your money is and where it's going. You know what's covered and what's coming. The background anxiety, that hum that's been following you around, gets quieter. Do a budget review once a month, 10 minutes. Sit down, look at what you spent versus what you planned. Adjust whatever needs adjusting. That's the whole ritual. 10 minutes. 3 months from now, you could be in a completely different relationship with your money. That only happens if you start, and starting is simpler than the version of it you've been avoiding. The financial turbulence you were already in, the slow bleed you'd been ignoring because ignoring felt safer than counting. That impact you were bracing for, you're already in it. 3 steps to start. No app required. 1. List every active subscription you're paying for. Every single one. Check your bank statement. Check your email for confirmation receipts. Check the App Store on your phone. Get the full list. 2. Add up last month's delivery and eating out charges. Don't estimate. Count. 3. Write down your 3 biggest spending categories, what the numbers say they are, which might surprise you. That's your starting point. 3 pieces of information you probably don't have right now and probably need. Write your 3 categories in the comments. No judgment, just name them. You'll be surprised how many people share the same ones. 20 minutes ago, you press play because some part of you knew it was time to look. And for the last 20 minutes, that's exactly what you did.